Operation status quo. Operation status quo. Prepare to engage. Operation status quo. Ready to engage. Operation status quo. Engaged. Engaged. Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Operation Status Quo here on a beautiful Friday. It's Friday. It's Friday. Isn't it great when we make it to Friday, quite honestly? I know. I enjoy it myself personally, although the only depressing part is we know another Monday's coming. But this Monday is a holiday, and I didn't even realize that myself. That's how out of touch I am with the mainstream world in a way. I just found out like yesterday, I'm like, oh my God, I'm off from work on Monday. Isn't that awesome? So I kind of put a little extra spunk in my mood. So anyway, welcome to Operation Status Quo, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you here, a pleasure to be with you, of course, as we share this space together. Once again, my name is Pete Palma. I am your user-friendly host, broadcasting live from the comfy confines of my very own home here in beautiful Florida, on the west side, for sure. And this is Operation Status Quo. If you don't know that already, if you're new here, thank you, welcome. I appreciate you taking the time to be here. This is the space where we observe the status quo of life. We learn to flow with the status quo of life, and then we create our own flow of quo-yo, because that's the only way to go. So we just talk about what's going on in the world, we observe what's going on in the world, and then we find which way we're going to work with that to make our life the best that we can for ourselves, because that is what it's all about. Today is the 6th of October in the good year 2023, and today's program is entitled Wake Up Call with Mr. N. We have our special friend Mr. N with us here today. We give a round of applause for Mr. N joining us here live on Operation Status Quo to talk about what do we got to do to wake up some of these sleepy heads out there in the world.
Heyo.
Hey, Mr. N, how you doing today?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for having me on.
It's a pleasure to have you. For those that don't know, Mr. N has been following the show really since I kind of started this. I don't know if you were watching before when I was doing the other versions of this or not, but either way, he's been with me here since I started this version in March and had him on the show a time before back in, I guess that was, I don't know if that was April or whenever the heck we did that, but that was a nice chat that we had. So it's a real pleasure to have you back and see that not only are you continuing to watch, but willing to come back on again. For God's sake, I got to give you a round of applause. We need to help you. What is wrong with your life, my friend?
The applause is too kind. It's just too kind.
Yeah, right. This applause is too kind. Anyway, I do know because we spoke briefly, and I know your ire was drawn a little bit from my show a couple of days ago. So I would like for you to just to go ahead and get into some thoughts you'd like to express about, well, first of all, we're talking about waking up our population, and you see how things are going on in the world. And it's, it's frustrating when we're trying to move ahead and so many kind of keep us keep us down. But I'll let you speak onto your thoughts on that today.
Yeah, I guess there's a couple parts of it. I think for me, I guess we can start at sort of the programming, and maybe we should start with, is it possible, to wake people up?
Yes.
And I think that you saw a really good example of some serious programming, with the gentleman from the other day. And it's just sort of, you hear these things like, in discussing like, flat Earth, for example.
Right.
It's just science. Like it's become so cringy when you're around this subject for a while and you hear responses like that.
Yes.
And it's just, is it even possible to get through that programming? And you know what? I have a really good story that I can tell you that's, it's a true conversation. And I think it's very illustrative of the point.
Okay.
So I was talking to someone about the moon landing, right? This is the classic litmus test for anything to see how sort of awake someone is, I think. And, I'm going through some things, talking about some physics type things like, propulsion in a vacuum, normal things that you can show experimentally are impossible. Just the whole absurdity, not even getting into the photographic evidence, which people normally do. And, I said, I'm going to tell you a few things, and I'm going to tell you some things that are factual, right? That no one can argue with. And, when you believe something or disbelieve something, there's probably a spectrum of, belief, shall we say. Like you can be 100% sure or 50% sure or, whatever the percentage may be. So I said, I'm going to take a very specific factual example about the moon landing and tell me what it does to your belief. Like, in other words, if you believe 100% that we went to the moon, does this move your needle at all? And the example I use, because no one can argue with this, is the famous story about the moon rock given to, I think it was some sort of Danish premier, or given to the Danish premier, whoever was the president, by Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, by the astronauts themselves. Anyway, it was given to them right after the so-called moon mission, and I think it was somewhere in 2015. And anyone is free to look this up. They tested the quote-unquote moon rock and found out that it was petrified wood. Okay,
right.
So when confronted that, now that's a fact. Okay, no one will deny that. In other words, you can be the biggest moon landing fan in the world, but you can't deny that. Okay, so I said, well, does that move your needle at all? In other words, you're 100% sure we went to the moon. Yes. Okay, well, I just told you this undeniable fact. Does that move your needle? And then the answer was no. Or I said, well, what do you think about that? Why would they do that? Well, maybe they switched it up. They accidentally gave them a piece of think about this, right? They accidentally gave them a piece of petrified wood,
right?
Or they didn't want to use the real moon. Like the excuses, like it's like it comes from a download somewhere,
right?
So that's what that's like, that doesn't move the needle at all. Now a rational person, you would think, would say, oh, you know what? I'm going to say that now I'm only like 90% sure, because that is a little bit weird, that would happen. And then I said, I used an analogy. I said, well, what if I told you I went to Egypt and saw the pyramids, and I showed you, this picture of me I posted it on, social media, and you found out later that I photoshopped myself into the pyramids? Do you think you would believe me that I actually went to Egypt? And the answer is probably not. So with with some person, like in an interpersonal relationship, right, you can know someone for 5 years. If you catch someone in a lie basically once, you're pretty much not going to believe them, or obviously take everything they say with a grain of salt. Whereas you can have a obviously fraudulent occurrence, right, with this governmental agency, and it doesn't change anything. And at one point, this person said, I'm not making this up, Heath. Well, what about Sally Ride? What happened to Sally Ride? I'm like, oh my God, what the hell? What are you talking about, Sally Ride? We're talking about a fake piece of moon rock. It's like,
right.
It's like, yeah, sorry, I talked for a while.
No, I appreciate it. It really saves me. But listen, I'm talking. If you watch the show, I'm talking all the time. It's great to have somebody else actually have something to say of relevance. Yeah, it's funny. Just on that way of thinking, because I'm just saying, and I was saying this when I did that show the other day, Plain and Simple was the title of that episode. And for what Mr. N is referring to is, one of my friends was on the chat live and he kind of, giving me a hard time because I was trying to just say, and again, I say this all the time in this type of way. It's not about, trying to prove what's right or wrong per se, what's 100%. I'm sure I'm sure there's a lot of gray area, like I say, I don't think it's some flat disc floating through space or something, because I think the whole concept of what we think of as space and do. And the point is, I'm always just trying to make the point of keeping our minds open to other possibilities. Like, we see how much we're lied to in our day-to-day lives, through our mainstream society and everything that goes on. So why would we not be lied to about certain concepts of what our, planet is even like, whether it's round or flat or, concave, I don't know, whatever the hell it is, I just, no matter what, I don't think we know the truth. And especially with The moon landing thing, I just mean, we go down tons of rabbit holes on that if we wanted to, as far as like, can you even physically land on the moon? Some people feel the moon is more of an energetic thing and that you can't even land on it. Other people say, well, whatever. The aliens have bases. We all have bases on the moon. Like the Nazis have bases on the moon. I don't know all the answers to all those things, but I do know this, and I will look at it all the time. When I look up at the sky and the moon and the sun are out at the same time, I'll be damned if they're not the same size. I always say they're equidistant. I'm not really 100% sure of that exactly, but maybe that's not totally the case, but they're the same size. What do you think about that when you look up and see the sun and the moon in the sky at the same time?
It's really funny. That's one of the things I enjoy doing more than I ever had previously, which is ironic. People think that if you have an alternative point of cosmology, right? Because that's really what we're talking about an alternative cosmology. And I can literally see the moon pretty much every day,
right,
from where I live. The other thing is that the moon gives off cool light. If anyone knows anything about Kelvin scales with lights, it's a cool temperature light. The idea that it's reflecting sunlight is ridiculous to me. The idea that with a naked eye you can see detailed craters on the moon that's supposed to be 200. By the way, tell your friends it's supposed to be 237 or 238,000 miles away, not 250. So that's right off the bat.
Okay. I wish he was on in the. He's probably. I lost 2 subscribers after that episode, and he's probably one of them. It's like I wanted to ask him, did you unsubscribe? I'm just curious. Like, did it upset you that much?
No, that's the other thing. I think we definitely need to get into that, into the being upset component of it. I had a friend, I said that the moon landing was fake to one of my friends, and they thought I was kidding, and I said, no, it's absolutely fake. And he's like, well, and this is a person I agree with on basically everything across the political frontier and everything else. And this person said, well, you just lost a lot of credibility. I said, you just lost a lot of credibility.
It's just so funny with the flat earth thing is just out of control. It's like, you could, I agree. Politics, blah, 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 do, everything. Down there, our country's falling apart, the transgender nonsense, blah, 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 blah. What? Flat earth. Oh, no, you're a total jerk. We can't be friends now. And it was really funny about one of the things, I wish I would have commented on it when he put it in the chat, because I read it, but I didn't, because my brain goes so quickly while I'm talking. Sometimes I skip over things, but what he said was he went on a date with a girl that was in the military, and she felt that the earth was flat, and he never dated her again. And I really wish I would have said, well, listen, she's in the military, maybe, because I've heard from plenty of pilots, there's plenty of interviews with pilots and stuff that talk about the earth being, flat. So, again, and I wish I would have touched on that with him, because it almost like proves it even more, that it could be flat, if the girl's in the military and she's saying it,
Yeah, and I'll say this, for the record, it gun to my head, if they asked me what the shape of the earth was, I would say that it doesn't have a shape, because and this is the funny part, people that are sort of globers and that sort of thing, that are also holographic universe people, to then claim that something is actually physically here is ridiculous. So right. To me, it's like, the correct answer for me is it doesn't have a shape because it's not physical, but I would say that it is. I'm 95% sure. I'm almost 100% sure. Actually, I'm 100% sure that it's not a spinning globe. That I do know. That's what I'm willing to say.
I agree with you. I would agree with that too. And I'm sure you've heard me speak on it before, and I've said it multiple times when I talk about this subject, is that I just feel it's more of a multi-dimensional. And, and I had done a show about time and our perception of time. I forgot what, anyway, it was like last week or whenever I did that show about time. And it was a really interesting concept, because I heard someone speaking about it. And, we look at time that we're going through our day and do, and it's this time, it's that time, it's the blah, 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 so on and so forth. But, really, it's just like, if you look at everything as just all one moment and all one expression instantly, we're just perceiving like it's all layers. It's not even time. It's more like it's layers, and through the essence of the oneness, we're encapsulated in these different parts of the layer of the ultimate one moment. So I mean, I know it's kind of like a concept to wrap your brain around for people out there, but in general, that's why I look at all that stuff that way. As far as even with the shape of the Earth or whatever you want to talk about, because we're all, and that's what gets like people. They're so locked in, like you're saying, this programming and everything, and they just can't. It shatters their whole belief system and reality to the point. I mean, that's an interesting concept to me too. Is just how much, how we are as humans. That if something shakes our that value system, or I'm not say value system, but our projected beliefs. I don't know what you want to say. That it can really cause so much like turmoil. And that's, like I mentioned this before too, is just that's why I think it's so liberating to realize that this life is the dream. And then there's nothing to be mad about or upset about, or nothing is carved in stone as the ultimate. We are just, everything is what we create.
Yeah, and you know what? And I guess I should talk a little bit about, I guess, sort of my waking up process, which ironically was caused by someone, actually a peripheral family member, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And she was talking about, we're laughing. She was talking about, and she believes that Stevie Wonder isn't blind.
Hey, maybe you never know.
She's like, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, so and I said, "Are you seriously?" And she's like, "Yeah, there's no way. I've seen too much evidence he's not." But we're all kind of laughing about it, having a good time. And then she mentioned that she didn't believe in the moon landing. And I said, "Are you serious?" It was like nothing, but I wasn't mocking or anything like that, because she's a very intelligent person, and she's like, "No, really, I don't." I said, "Oh, okay." And literally, that was the impetus to go start sort of this gigantic awakening process. And it was just that moment of being open minded. And by the way, I mean, I had grown up sort of in the belief that people that didn't think the moon landing happened were crazy, and then I went through, then I saw flat Earth stuff, and then I went through a period of time where I watched all the quote unquote debunking videos of the flat Earth, and then I was convinced by the debunking videos. I'm like, okay, well that's not true anymore. I won't waste any more time on that. Anyway, a year and a half, 2 years passes, and I just looked up the subject again to think. I was thinking like the whole flat Earth thing would be done by now, right? Because these debunkings were so convincing and everything had an explanation.
Right.
And then it's funny because when you get really deeply into it, you realize that the arguments against it basically rely on fallacies and the special pleading fallacies, they're called, right? So like I can show you an experiment on Earth, like a vacuum chamber, right? And like there's a really good experiment. People can go to Cody's lab or any of these other things where he takes a computer fan and he puts it in a vacuum and he puts a feather right next to it. And with the computer fan all the way to its max setting, the feather doesn't move at all, right? And this is showing that in order to move something, you have to have friction somewhere. So this idea that there are ships flying around in outer space and hitting thrusters and that's moving them is just, it's demonstrably untrue, right? So then you got special pleading fallacies, which are, well, no, it works there because X, Y, and Z, bullshit, basically.
Right, yeah, right, exactly. Even the stuff when they talk about, they'll say, well, to me, one of the biggest ones, I just think the air travel really shows it so much because, when I go back and look, I use this example, when I did my travel to Bali, my flight pattern was from Philly to Boston, Boston to South Korea, South Korea to Bali. And when you lay that out on a flat map, or on the flat Earth map, it's a straight line from, Boston goes straight over across and it's to Bali, through South Korea, Bali. And, it makes sense. Like, well, that's why they have all these stopover flights and everything. It's all just to confuse. I know, like, people, I can understand why people was like, who's going to go through all that effort to But, the truth is when you realize that we're enslaved, and that's the whole point of this waking up and talking about, I know we're focusing so much on, the flat earth is an example, but just in general for people to be awake and use their heads and see. And I'm going to just agree with you too, because I did the same thing. I started to look at flat earth and I was into it. And, and then I saw both sides and blah, blah. And, me, I'm always ready to, believe something outside the mainstream for sure. But I took a step back on that one too, because I believed all the other stuff. I believe Princess Diana's still alive. You know what I mean? And all these other things that they went into, these deep stories of how she, her JFK Jr., I don't want to get into too crazy, but I'm just saying, right? There's a lot of stuff out there that is going on beyond our perception, beyond what we really understand. Matter of fact, I just saw a great one this week. This week of that, Donald Trump is actually George Patton's son, General Patton's son. And I went and looked up on Google a picture of Patton, and I'll tell you what, in his older years, you put Trump and him next to each other, they look like exactly alike. It's just like totally unbelievable. And there's a whole story behind the lineage of their family and this war that's been going on for all this time to basically free humanity from the slave system that we're in. And when and the way Trump came on the scene, and everything was part of I don't want to make it heavy on the Trump thing either, but just trying to say, like, there's a whole story of him coming up in quiet the way he did in the first place, the ability to get things done in New York the way he did, and then to lose his, the bankruptcy thing he went through, and then to come back. And then there was an interview in him. They asked him when he was first coming up in New York. He was a young man, and the woman said to him, "It's like, oh, if you lost all your money, what do you think you would do?" He goes, "Oh, I don't know. I'd probably run for president." You know what I mean? And I'm saying that's back like in the late '70s, because it's all been determined. And again, if you just look at it from the point of view that there is no time and no space, and there's people at higher levels that understand this and are operating in our world with that knowledge. We're not, the everyday people, but these other people, they are, and they understand that already. It's a process, and it's just so much deeper than anything we can imagine. And when I talk about waking people up, in my mind, it's not about, again, it's never about what's right or wrong. It's just more about realizing, just being open to realizing, bigger things. And just to finish, I went away from the flat earth thing, like I said, and I was into the other stuff. And then after COVID happened, that started popping back up again, and I started looking at it again. I said, you know what? I'm really starting to think it is flat, and then that's when I started to notice, like looking at the sun and the moon, and even what you said about the moon putting off the cool light. Like even when I was outside this morning, and it's a half moon out there today, right, this morning, and I can see the half moon where it is up in the sky over here, and the sun was over here, and I'm looking, I say, the sun, where it is, it's too low in the sky for the moon to be reflecting the light in the way, it's not the sunlight reflecting off the moon. And the craziest thing about the moon too is that it's always dark. Like, how can it be? How is it a perfectly round thing like that, and then you're only seeing half of it? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, so I don't know how that part of it works exactly, but like this dark side of the moon thing or whatever, that just tells me, that's why it makes me think the moon is more of at least partially some sort of energetic expression, as opposed to, well, everything's an energetic expression, but not as physical as, they make it like it's just a chunk of rock floating around up there,
Yeah, and I agree with you. I have no idea what the moon is, other than it's not a chunk of rock out there.
Right. Maybe it's a piece of petrified wood,
Yes, it's more likely to be made out of cheese, honestly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that this is a good point too, and this goes against, people just turning into children when you question their worldview. People, especially today, like in the victim culture, they love to talk about empowerment, and you have to empower this and empower that. Honestly, if people listen to the sorts of things that you're talking about on a daily basis, instead of getting upset about things, that's actually the ultimate form of empowerment. It's the old expression, it's much easier to fool someone than to convince someone they've been fooled.
Yes.
And people that try to convince people that they've been fooled, which are, people in cults, or whatever, even people, the society would clap for people pulling other people out of religion, because, we're in a very secular society. And it's like, you and I both have the same issues with religion, but not for the reasons that quote unquote, secular people have them, for. But Yeah, it's like basically you're trying to. Everyone has like Stockholm syndrome. You know what I mean? For like whatever is on the news, and it's like no, these people are taking advantage of you. They're harming you. These beliefs are harming you. They're not rational, and then people get mad at you. It's shooting the messenger. It's like how dare you, Pete Palmer? How dare you? I was looking at the globe from the time I was in kindergarten. How dare you tell me that there's no globe? And I mean, it's just crazy, and it is self-defeating on their part. And the other thing is, you don't have any money to make on, the Earth not being a globe. You don't have any long-standing bets with anyone, as far
No,
as I'm concerned.
no.
And if someone showed you, really good evidence that the Earth was in fact a spinning globe, I'm sure you would do what I would do and be like, okay, cool. Hey, look, this is why I didn't think it was, or why I thought that was sketchy, but now that you showed me that, sure, that makes sense. That's fine. Like I don't care really. I have nothing to gain by it. That's the fun part.
And me too. Like, and when I talk about what I'm talking about all the time, when I do the show, like you say every day, what do I say? I say the same stuff all the time. Generally, it's just about opening your mind to different perspectives and looking at the world in a different way. And I'm like I say, I find it liberating. Like, because like who wants to live in this system anyway? Like that's the part that gets me. It's like you guys, like everybody who gets pissed off and stuff. It's like even forget about the Earth and my friend that the way he was about it. But I just saying, even with our monetary system as a great example. Like, why do you want to stay enslaved to this system? Why do you want to have a child and then have your child in debt for the rest of their life trying to go to college and stuff? Like, it's obvious that the system is pitted against you to keep you down. And a very small percentage of the population has the means and total wealth of everything. So, I mean, like, why not challenge the system? And I'm not saying to be violent. I'm not saying it to we have to start a big war or anything. I think it's really simple personally. Just stop participating, stop buying shit, cancel Netflix, stop paying taxes. Just stop. And we all start to just use our heads. The Earth has everything we need. We build local communities. I'm not saying we have to live like cavemen or anything. I mean, we have technology, we have, but we have to use it in a different way. I mean, I totally believe that free energy exists. I believe the healthcare is like way beyond what they actually give us. And, it just goes beyond that. We could be living lives of, fruitfulness, of, just, and I'm not even talking about not working. I try because people then tell me I'm lazy and this kind of thing. And it's like, I'm not even saying that. I'm all about doing whatever. Like I always use the example, like the Amish, I love the Amish. They get up in the morning, they build a barn and then they cook a bunch of stuff and they all eat together and have a good time. Like, I'll be out there. The Amish need some help. I'll go over there and help pull up the side of the barn. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not like saying I want to sit here and, eat bonbons all day or something. I want to be involved, but let's do things that matter. Let's do things that are productive. Let's do things that build each other up instead of tearing each other down. And our society is completely designed to for people to tear each other apart. Basically, there's no time to help your fellow man because you're too busy just trying to keep your head above water. So, and again, going back to our point of like waking people up. I mean, just to kind of take it a step further as we're discussing, like, is it? I have two questions about it. One, is it our responsibility to wake others up? And to that, I'll let you speak on both of these after I say. But just to say on that one, I would say, in a way, it is. Like, in a way, it doesn't hurt to put forth ideas to let people hear, to ponder, to decide for themselves how they're going to take it. Like, I don't think we should force anybody anything because then we're doing the same thing from, in the bad way, from a different way, with good intentions or whatever, but we're still not doing the right thing. So yeah, responsibility, in a way, to at least, try to share, but at the same time, reserved because each person's on their own journey and has to learn for themselves. And the second point, basically saying, can we even wake someone? If a person is not emotionally, energetically, vibrationally, spiritually, whatever you want to say, aligned in certain ways to even receive that type of information and expound upon it themselves to hear and just actually give it thought, critical thought and make a decision. If they're not in that space, they're just plain just program bots in this particular incarnation for them. I what can you do about that? Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of responsibility, that's a hard one. It's very, it's almost like that's like the Christian thing, right? The Christian people always trying to quote unquote save people.
Yes.
And to me, I would say no, it's not a responsibility. But if you truly wanted to make the world better, then you would do so. Obviously, not jamming anything down their throat, not telling people you're going to go to hell. Obviously, not anything like that. But it's sort of like, well, the world will be better if people just. It obviously would be better. If you could snap your fingers and people were open-minded about these things, like as you are, the world would transform instantly. I mean, just think about the industries that go out of business. The military industrial complex, network news,
Yeah.
like all these things would change, right? And people would be, probably living in smaller groups. It's funny, the people that know me, I'm the most virulently anti-communist person in the world. And yet, if I had the means, I would have a commune. Well, I know, no, really, it's funny, but it's because communism is forced on people. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, and in terms of is it even possible? I mean, I think I spoke to that a little bit earlier. I don't know. I honestly don't know, because there are people for certain that you can just ask them questions and they will start deflect. This happens in political discussions too, though. They're just ideologues. Mm-hmm. And everything you say, depending on how controlled they are, it just doesn't work. And that brings up, that actually gets to the bigger question of, I've heard this terminology called PSVs, right? Possible soul vehicles. And this actually overlaps with something in Neoplatonism, which I'm really personally interested in. And that is this discussion about free will, right? So the Neoplatonic idea of free will doesn't exist until you actualize it, right? So the people you see walking around and reacting in certain ways, it may just be a matter of them deciding how in tune with their own spiritual existence they are. You know what I mean? Like people that are very materialistic, and I mean that in terms of people that think that evolution and the Big Bang and randomness and all that and everything's just a big accident. They're just not receptive toward certain things,
right?
And I don't know if it's possible to ever move them. And like you said, it could be that that's how this particular incarnation of them is going to go through life. And maybe they learn one thing and then they come back again and know more. I don't know. It's obviously a speculation.
Yep.
But yeah.
And just to answer my own question on that, I would say, because this is what I always say, because of course, I'm on the side of well, I don't know how I want to say it. I'm on the side of the Q and all that kind of stuff, basically. I love Trump as a character. I know it's such a divisive thing, but I laugh every time. I love watching him talk. He just really cracks me up, and it's I just like that he's got balls the way he does, and all that type of thing. So yeah, am I more in the camp of this side talking about, freedom, and we have to fight these evil Satan worshiping SOBs that are drinking babies' blood and all? Yeah. Am I into that? Yeah. But, at the same time, when I take it back to everything else, like I always say, everything is one. And, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, it's all one. So for the most beautiful, angelic person, goodness in the world, whatever you can find, the most deplorable evil that exists that you can find, it's all from the same one universal energy, because through universal law, there is no good or bad, right or wrong. Everything's more of just a cycle and this level of contrast that we need to have so that we can learn lessons. So, when we talk talk about, like I see a lot of truth movement people who, are always really like, we gotta take these people down and rah, 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 and do. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, like, should we stand up for, for virtue and righteousness in certain ways? Like, especially when they get deep on like, put on the armor of Christ and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh my God, we're getting really serious here, aren't we? Like, can't we just like go for a walk or something? But anyway, but I believe it all to be part of, it's, I mean, like nothing is real, everything. So we're in a playground, right? We're in a playground and we're all observation points, and we all have different perceptions and different ways of processing our physical dynamics, and it's all part of that whole, that brings the whole picture together. And I say this all the time. Let's just say we get through this madness at some point, and everybody's exposed. All the politicians, the corporations, ba ba ba, and everything changes over. And now we got this nice, happy world, do. And how long is it going to take before so many years go by, generations, maybe 500, 1,000 years, however long it takes? But isn't it likely that after so many generations of never experiencing the deplorable, isn't it going to start to slide back that way? Because it's only going to take one person that's got an idea that's like, I can get over on these people if I kind of just do this. And one little thing will lead to another little thing that'll lead to another little thing. And, the cycle will just repeat itself. I forgot what it's called, but there's that, you go through the Bronze Age, the Silver Age, the Gold Age, the Golden Age, the cycles of karma and stuff. So, that's just basically what it is. Like, you're going to be in times when, say, more the evil, if you want to use lack of better terms, good and evil, there may be times in our existence when the evil energy has more control, or seemingly so, in the physical presentation, that we're existing in, and then it'll shift over. Like that's the same thing that happened with the whatchamacallit, the Atlantis and the Atlanteans, whatever technologies they had, and then they started using them for the wrong stuff, and that was like the collapse of. But they were ahead of us at that time, right? They were a more enlightened society, and when they started to go down the path, and then here we are digging out of the muck again and coming up from all these years. I know people aren't prepared to hear the level of stuff with the human trafficking, and like that's the part that really just gets me the most. Is like I just think in our current state of what the world is presenting, if people really understood that our whole mainstream life that we're living now is designed purposely for the facilitation of human trafficking and child sex trafficking, like it would really kind of like just click in your head, because they got you over here worrying about the war, they got you over here worrying about an asteroid or aliens or this or that. In the meantime, they're funneling these kids left and right. So and just to speak on that quickly, because I mentioned this to you in the beginning, but I'm so frustrated. I should do another show about this. I'm just so frustrated with my Facebook, because my Facebook today, from a post that I posted about child pedophilia 3 years ago, I made this post. Now they pull up my post and they restrict my account. That's one of the reasons I would have had Mr. N on through Messenger instead of having to put him externally here on the computer, because I can't get into my Messenger to do the call. But I'm saying, like, why am I being restricted and saying community standards when I'm talking about there's people out there raping kids? Like, are you telling me that should set off alarms to people? Like, just hearing it a little bit that it's even possible should be something that everybody stops in their tracks and say, wait a minute, or let's make sure we really is this really going on? Like, but nobody even gives an F, and then you're just some crazy conspiracy theorist. It just blows my mind,
Yeah, 100%. And in a way, if someone's really thinking, right, if they're actually functioning correctly, they would hear what you just said and realize that that's the problem, that you were punished for talking about something like that. And in fact, I don't know if you saw this. I think it was yesterday, the day before. I think there were, I want to say 50 arrests. I could be wrong. Actually, in Florida, about with regards to a sex child trafficking ring.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't hear about that, but I know it's been in the news so much more over the past couple of years, and I find that interesting because when I first got into the Q stuff and realized Trump's role in this this play, this movie that we're basically watching, and how it really has to do with exposing the child trafficking. I mean, there's the whole thing, even Epstein and his connections to J.P. Morgan and the banks. It's so, and that's why the banking system's going to go down. And it's just like, it's too many things to try to, quantify and put all into one little thought. But, when I started seeing all that stuff and realizing, and they started talking, and Q really talks about that a lot with the human trafficking and everything. And that's basically the main thing that's, being brought to light. I started noticing, I mean, not that it was never mentioned before probably, but I've been, I don't watch like the way I did the first year or so when the fake pandemic first happened. I was, watching, I was really getting my brain like research, blah, blah, blah. And now, I mean, it's all the same stuff that I researched a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, and I just see it. It's still playing out, step by step. I mean, just think about what's going on, even with the Speaker of the House, and now there's a chance for Trump to get in there as Speaker of the House, and Biden's about to get arrested. I don't know, all this kind of stuff. It's just like he could wind up being president again just by that, So anyway, I don't know how it's going to play out. To me, it's all a show anyway. What's really going on is much deeper beyond what we're shown. Mainstream media is just a total farce and a lie. Everything they show, I don't believe a lick of it. Even when those reporters are out there, especially World News or something, when they're on site somewhere, they might have a set design that looks like where the earthquake hit or where the flood happened, but they're not there. And those people that they're talking to, to me, are actors and all. I would love to meet one person that knows anybody that's ever been interviewed by World News or any of these CNN, when these catastrophes strike, when the tornadoes hit the Midwest and they go out there and talk to people. I'd like to meet one person that's ever met David Muir or any of these people, because it's not real. I don't even think David Muir is out in public. He's like a robot. They open the closet and they turn him on, So anyway, and listen, Mr. N, I think this was a very spirited discussion, and I think it's great to know that there's other people like you out there that are, questioning things, living this way. And I just think it's important for all of us to continue to do that. Like, we don't have to start, it doesn't have to be a fight. I keep saying this all the time. It's not about, all that stuff. Like, we can literally dissolve that portion of what's going on in the world by focusing our attention on other things and living within those, whatever vibration and frequency you're resonating with and going with, So I would even say to you, for things that you're passionate about, just like I say to myself, don't let it get you. Don't let it eat you up. You know what I mean? Like, have your views, have your opinions, but always remember to keep a little smile on your face, knowing that, it's all part of, the dream, and we're just here to learn, and everything is in our lives for, a purpose of giving us information to help our souls grow for whatever the whole, for whatever of the whole,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
easier said than done.
No, it is easier said than done. And listen, it's different for me too a lot of times, and I've created my life this way. I guess I've just learned and purposely, and that's why, I'm not married. I don't have kids. I don't have a lot of extra pressures that people do. When you're involved with, you might have a spouse. I'm not saying you, but people in general might have a spouse that is totally on the other side or would never even understand some of the stuff. And even if they're willing to listen to some of the things you say, it's like, well, that's all good and all, but I need you to go to the store and get this, and we got to get the kids to the soccer game at this time, and just life. People get caught up in that life, and that's why I do not in any way want to get caught up in the mainstream way. Even if I struck it rich tomorrow, like never needed another dollar again, well, I'll probably need something because the dollars are going to go away. So whatever they decide to give us, but if I was independently wealthy, I'm not going to run out and like, okay, now it's time I get a Porsche, and now I get this, and now I get that. Like, I want to, I don't know how I would use it per se. All I know is I would feel the level of freedom I would feel to know that I don't have to get involved, in the mainstream that way. I probably would use the money more to teach myself to be even more independent. Now I got money, I don't have to worry about it. I can learn to grow food. I can build a little cabin somewhere, So
exactly.
I think the more we can detach. And it's not about not being social and all too, because, we're humans and we are meant to be social and to have community. I just think, it's really been, inverted in a horrible way. Just what they've done. I'm not even speaking on the transgender stuff, but just the normal genders that we are used to, the way they've even inverted the roles of men and women. And I'm not saying, and this doesn't mean like, woman should be in the home and blah, blah, barefoot and pregnant. I'm just saying they've turned women into men. Like women are just as aggressive. Women are, just going out to hook up. And I don't know, it's just weird to me. Like, I always looked at women as like, oh, thank God we have women. They at least keep us in line a little bit, but like, because you know how men are, right? We're just all over the place, and instead they took that away and they create even competition within that. Like a woman doesn't have to be, I don't want to. I know I almost used the word equal, but I don't mean it that way. But like, it doesn't. Women are great at certain things, and men are great at certain things, and I don't understand why we just don't appreciate that we're two sides of the same coin. And why do we not just appreciate? It's like a quarter arguing with itself. That heads wants to be tails, and tails wants to be heads. It's like it's it. It's heads and tails. So like, why can't we just work together and utilize the skills that we have in the different genders to bring them together to create, instead of trying to compete. Like, I don't know. I was in my neighborhood some months ago, and I saw the man was standing outside, like holding the baby, and the woman was loading up the back of the truck, and I was thinking to myself, what the hell am I seeing here? You know what I mean? Not even that, like, that's not okay. It's more like, just as from how I was raised and stuff, of course the woman is capable to put stuff in the truck. But, as a man, I wouldn't want my woman to be, hey, listen, load up the truck. I'm going to sit here and, hold the baby. Like I would want to help the woman. Like, oh, no, I got that for you because, man wants to take care of his woman, So I don't know. It just, maybe that sounds old fashioned, but that's just, kind of some of the thought process I have.
Yeah, that sounds like another discussion we should have. Actually, that as a whole, boy, that's something to talk about. All this mishigash going on.
Yeah, it's really crazy. So, well, listen, I'm going to let you go. We had a nice, good 45, 46 minutes here now. We're coming up on. So excellent. I really appreciate your time for being here today on Operation Status Quo. Mr. N, anything else you'd like to say, add, do, give, provide? Any final thoughts for the beautiful people of the world out there?
Yes. I bear no ill will toward your friend, and I hope that I hope that he opens up his mind a bit, and it will be for his benefit. And he can, by the way, he and anyone else can maintain their views as long as they want. I think it's the willingness to open up your mind and consider other possibilities, if even for a little bit, is the most valuable thing.
Yes. And I don't know if you're willing to share this on your Facebook, but I can't share mine on my Facebook today because I'm restricted. I can't post on my account. So, but I know you're a kind of a private guy, so I don't want you to feel, put that out there and get yourself ostracized from your social circle.
Yeah.
Hey, well, listen, Mr. N, thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to having you back on the show real soon. And you have yourself a great weekend out there. And keep free thinking.
You too, sir.
All right. Take care. All right. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. N, here on Operation Status Quo. What a great discussion, And it is important to remember that we don't have to force anybody to do. It's not about forcing beliefs. It's really just about open mind and having discussion. I'm always happy to have somebody on here who thinks the complete opposite of what I think. That's fine. We can have a talk about that too. I mean, it's nicer to have people like Mr. N who agree a little bit, right? But anyway, it is what it is, and it's a beautiful world out there, ladies and gentlemen, and it's all what we create. So just believe in yourself, and keep an open mind and keep a smile on your face and keep on going, because the world's going to keep. I was going to say the world's going to keep spinning, but it's not really spinning. But the world's going to keep moving on, and we're going to keep moving on. All right, so that's what we got for you here today on Operation Status Quo. I thank you so much for your time. If you haven't done so already, please, why not? Like, subscribe, share. Send this out to your friends, your family, those you love, and, of course, those you despise as well. I love each and every one of you individually as well as a group. And until Monday, Operation Status Quo, disengaged.